So I'm gonna talk a bit more about our product offerings that we have for the wood applications. As already shortly mentioned, our main offering is our NVC unit. As you see here, I'm coming back to that in a second. The three other products that we have listed up here are our key components, mainly our high-pressure pumps. They are built on the positive displacement principle, meaning that the flow is directly proportional to the speed or the number of rotations of the shaft. So the faster it rotates, the more flow it provides. It's made of stainless steel, making it highly reliable and gives a very long service life. It is so that as standard, we say that there can be up to 8,000 hours in between service. But what we also see from real life wood applications is that as long as the filtration is in place, these units, powerpack units, they can run for up to 20,000 hours or more in between service inspection. The pumps are not lubricated by oil. They are only lubricated by the media that the pump is operating in. So there's no oil service, which also reduces the maintenance. Besides this, we have our different kinds of high pressure valves, among others our solenoid valves, open closing valves. They're also made of stainless steel. They're very compact, and the maintenance on them is very limited, and it's easy to conduct also without having to remove the valve from the line. They can either be installed directly on our powerpack unit or in the application wherever it fits. Finally, we also have different types of nozzles made of stainless steel in a number of various sizes to fit to the right need, as Hannu mentioned. And they are also available with an anti-drip function. For now, let's just focus a bit more on our NVC powerpack unit, which is our wood concept product, or the main offering we have. It's built on one concept where we have 5 basic sizes, and on top of those 5 sizes we can customize the unit depending on your need. The 5 sizes, they are from a physical dimension perspective all the same. They have the same physical footprint, but the flow range varies. I just want to share my screen, so just hang on a second, and I will jump to our 3D model here, where you can see the unit a bit more. So we have here our tank. It acts as a buffer. Inside, the pump is sitting well protected and fully submerged into water, and it's actually an ideal location for the pump, which is also one of the reasons why we see these very good and long service intervals. And I said, as long as the filtration is in place, we have the filter here, they can run for more than 20,000 hours typically. Also, the tank acts as cooling for any flow that may be recirculated that the pump is creating, but it's which is not used by the application, then it's actually recirculated back via the filter into the tank. Right. Then we have here, this is our powerpack valve, and that can be used to recirculate flow back to the tank if it's not needed by the application, and thereby it actually provides a very broad flow range for this one unit. We can recirculate up to 90% of the water that is being pumped. We can recirculate that back to the tank without heat being generated in the water. What you see here, that is then the high pressure outlet. That's either going to our solenoid valves, which can be mounted here on the frame, or they can sit in the application itself somewhere. Over here, this part here, that is our filling system. Here you have the water inlet, water supply, and as mentioned, we have the filter here. It is 10 micron absolute filtration, and as long as that is installed, we see very good performance and lifetime of the unit itself, and that provides a long service interval. Over here you see a level and temperature measurement and an air breathe. Whoops. All right, let's get back to the presentation. But I mean, you can you have access to this 3D model yourself also, so you can have a closer look if you want to do that. As mentioned, the unit comes in 5 basic sizes, which you see here in the table. It comes either as a constant speed version where you have the electrical motor installed. If we take the American units, the smallest unit, when it's running fixed speed 1800 RPM, is between 0.57 and 4.84 gallons a minute. Of this value here, as said, 90% of that can be recirculated without the water being heated up. It passes through a relief valve and then returns via the filter back to the tank. So that in itself actually gives a broad flow range. Another option is to install a frequency converter drive on the unit itself also to control the actual speed of the motor, and in that way to control the flow. That's also an option. But in many cases, we just see that the constant speed is more than enough in most applications. So as mentioned, there are some additional options that can be chosen to customize the units. We've already talked about the pump size to fit to the right need in the application. Besides this, there's also the media, whether we are talking about tap water and drinking water. In that case, it would be our PAH pump, or if the application is a DI water / technical water application, then it would be our PHT pump, which would be sitting inside the tank. We have different motor sizes, of course, depending on how much flow and what pressure is required. And then we have our filter sizes that can be chosen, which filter would be the right one for you. In addition to this, as mentioned, we have the solenoid valves. They are called VDHT, our solenoid valves from Danfoss. They can either be installed on the frame or in the application. And on the frame itself, we can have up to 12 valves installed and controlling the same amount of zones. Finally, it's also possible to get the NVC powerpack with a control system from Danfoss. It's also possible to get it without and use your own control system. This gives the flexibility that the unit can be installed both in new installations where you might have a control system yourself you want to use, or in existing installations where you might not have that option, and then we can provide a control system for you. So that's both an option. If we have a look here, as Hanno mentioned, we have a very compact unit with a very small footprint. So, and at the same time, if we look on the right side, here you get a schematic of how the unit is looking and how it's made. We have here the pump sitting in the tank and the motor. And out here we have solenoid valves controlling the different zones in the application. Here we have our powerpack valve. So in case the pump is producing excess water, which you don't need in your application, it will be relieved via the relief valve in the powerpack valve via the filter and back to the tank. It's also possible to use the solenoid valve we have here sitting in the powerpack valve to recirculate water in case you have your application running, but for the moment don't need water in a whatever minute or two, for instance, but then you need it afterwards, and therefore it makes sense to keep the pump running, and then you just recirculate the water. So that's also an option to use it in that way. Right, to try and sum this up, we have this one unit, the NVC unit, which can be customized in the way you want. It's made up of 5 different flow sizes, but it's all in the same footprint, physical footprint. Now today we've talked a lot about dust suppression, and it can definitely be used for dust suppression, but it can also be used for other applications within the wood area. For instance, when we are talking about saw blade lubrication, and also when we are talking about lumber drying in drying kilns, as well as for heat treatment applications. It's all the same within the same unit that can handle this. We have a very high uptime, or the unit has a very high uptime. As mentioned, it can be, we have seen many examples where it's running more than 20,000 hours in between service intervals. And as Hanno mentioned, using high pressure water mist is highly effective compared to, for instance, low pressure or the fan or vacuum technology. So only with a small amount of water, we can cover a very large area, and also the smaller droplet sizes, due to the higher pressure, is better at capturing and binding to the flying sawdust, and thereby making it heavy and fall to the floor. So it's a more effective way to combat the flying sawdust. The size makes it very easy to fit into tight spaces, both when we are talking about new installations and also retrofitting existing ones. And due to not only that the unit itself is small, but also the amount of flow needed is less. Also the piping is smaller, and therefore also making it easier to fit into, for instance, existing saw lines. Good. All of this is made using well-known Danfoss technologies that have been in the market for many years, and they have been proven in the field.